Hey guys, it's me again, Orc Slayer. What is where we last left off? Let's see. Checking. So, Deku and Bakugo went to Gran Torino's house, trained with him for a period of time, went to Hosu to go bail Ida out after Deku had told Aizawa, keep an eye on Ida, until he's like straight up, yeah, just go like shadow Ida. Ida went after Hero Killer. Aizawa was able to hold off the Hero Killer and actually kinda would have maybe beaten him very like a chance there if Deku and Bakugo hadn't showed up. I'm not saying if as in they destroyed Aizawa, but as if in the sense that they pretty much Deku just snapped the Hero Killer's weapons in half. Actually, he snapped them in like eights, I believe, would be the more better example of measurement. But as I digress. Also, I remembered the guy the Yujiro snapped the sword to. I believe his name is Motobe, which is like he's the greatest weapons master in the world. I don't know if it's guns and such, but I know it's just weapons in general. So, anyways, as I digress, Deku and Bakugo end up like going with Gran Torino again since they are able to go on their, normal to go on their normal thing since they never really got in trouble since Deku had to use his quirk, but he was pretty much given permission to by Gran Torino and such, so, And Gran Torino didn't get in trouble this time for, since Deku and Bakugo didn't run off. They told him exactly what they were doing, that they were going to go check around the surrounding areas and ensure the civilian safety and other hero safety, which they did tremendously. As we go forward in the story, we switch to where Ida's in the hospital. Deku and Bakugo are speaking with him. As Deku and such is like, so, you're not gonna kill someone again? He's like, no, Deku, a bit too injured for that. Deku's like, could have been much worse. He's like, how so? You could have been dead. It's like, oh. He's like, well, you aren't at least, so that's a good thing. Aizawa wasn't really that injured as well, so bonuses. So, even if I didn't have my quirk activated, if Aizawa had to cancel both of our quirks out, I could have easily overpowered Sane. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, oh yeah, I guess I never told you guys about that. My family, specifically on my father's side, has a genetic abnormality, you could say, where our muscles are much greater than that of any normal person's. Like, to the point that even without seriously exercising, we can compete with... Well, we have to exercise kind of seriously, if you get what I mean. But it isn't to the full-on breaking point of pushing our bodies to the absolute limit. It's like, then, wait, how strong are you? Well, as I've, evolved this over time, I'm sorry again for continuously changing Deku's thing. But I'll stay on this one from now on, is that if they didn't train at all and were just, normal people that use their muscles regularly, they would be on the lines of a... close to, if not exactly like a weight of a professional bodybuilder or weightlifter. Or powerlifter, I would say. As Deku explains that. But since Deku, as he says, I put my body through hell, quite literally in this sense. Well, not literally, but quite closely. As he said, he uprooted trees, he lifted them on his back, as that's another thing. I forget, was it, I think it was Eddie Hall and I forget his name, but Eddie Hall and on History Channel, I watched it before, is that they took modern strongman and had them do older strongman challenges, lifting up a car. The Scotland has many of them, a few of their things, which is stone blocks that you gotta carry in two hands, and you gotta walk across a bridge. But as I digress, he essentially says that he's equivalent with the training he's done, to at least 4 powerlifters, or close to that level. As he says, flipping a car, depending on the type of car it is, isn't that all that difficult for him. Like, for instance, he says he could flip over like a little buggy easily, but trucks and such, bit more difficult, and a limousine, he's never had the chance to try it. So, wait, when did you have a chance to try on the other cars? When they parked in the way of when me and my mom would sometimes go out, we had to get a very big car, you see, or we just walked everywhere. And so these jackasses would park their stuff right in the way of our place, so I would just sort of move them, and then when my mom got, backed out, I just move them back. Like, wow, Deku, you are something. He's like, I know. Well, anyways, I gotta get going. I'm tired as hell. As he's like, sure thing, Deku. He's like, well, see ya. As Deku goes on with this and such, he isn't really contacted by his father since, nothing really happens. But as I digress, Deku and them eventually still have to go back to UA, and I believe, it's between internships and final exams, or it's after final exams when they go to Island. Sorry about that mix up. But so yeah, I'll cut back to where Deku and them are just, going back to UA and such. As Deku rides with Aizawa, he's like, so Aizawa, you enjoy your little incursion to Hozu? He's like, yeah, it was pretty exciting, Deku. Thanks for getting me involved. He's like, I knew you'd love it. As Deku's sitting there, he's like, this was actually kind of fun to see you in action, Aizawa. I watched for a little bit, not gonna lie. He's like, you could have helped me then earlier. He's like, yeah, but still, I want to see how you actually do. I was gauging if I could beat you without my quirk. He's like, did you arrive at a conclusion? Yep. Could you? I'd say it'd be somewhat difficult if I was just going at you with my normal body, as I'm pretty sure you already know about my family's abnormalities. I know about, you told Ida, remember? He's like, yep. But anyways, where was I going with this? I don't know, Deku. No one knows you really, except for Bakugo, I guess. Maybe your mom. He's like, good point. As Deku heads back to his home, as he goes out that night to go just relax a bit, as he's just been really tense lately, so he just goes and hangs out as he sits down in the Hanayama area, as he just sits down in like a relatively nice restaurant and just puts his head on the table. He's like, as a waiter comes by, rough day, sir? He's like, yep. Would you like some whiskey to help you calm down? He's like, no thanks, I'm a minor. He's like, sorry, I didn't mean to assume. He's like, it's okay, people mistake that all the time, man. But anyways, can I have as he's about to start ordering and such, but then he hears Deku? As he turns his head, it's like, oh, Momo, the hell are you doing here? It's like, oh, me and my family decided to come out for dinner tonight. Yeah, we didn't want to go to a too fancy place. Well, actually, my father was discussing having a meeting with some of his, client, with a friend, you could say. And they wanted to make it like a dinner between our families. But, instead, he decided to do this, is that he wanted to, go eat dinner with us alone. So, you know how that works. It's like, they here? She's like, yeah, they're just outside for a little bit. He's like, alright then. oh, you gotta sit down, or she's like, oh, you don't mind? He's like, sure, why not? I could use the distraction. So I heard you went, like, stump the hero killer? He's like, Aizawa pretty much had him cornered. I just more or less game by, because to give some extra insurance, you could say. Really? He's like, yeah. Killer wasn't all that tough, to be honest. So, what'd you do? He's like, I just broke his sword down. It wasn't that difficult. It's like, oh, really? He said, yeah. As Momo's family walks in, it's like, oh, Mr. Midoriya. He's like, hello, Mr. Yadorozu. How are you doing? He's like, doing quite well. As he, like, stands up to, like, greet them, he's like, so, you guys got done with that meeting thing? He's like, yeah, my client, or whatever Momo's family does. I know they're just rich. I think they're, like, a company of some sorts. He's like, yeah, my clients and such were wanting us to export more hero items. Well, we were trying to discover which hero items are the most profitable at the moment. He's like, huh, nice. As the waiter comes by, oh, is it, dinner with the family, mister? He's like, yeah, you could say. You could say so, I guess. He's like, well, it's, and I'm guessing this is your daughter's boyfriend or something? He's like, no. Deku's like, no. We just know each other from, well, my actual girlfriend. We met them through her, you could say. It's like, sorry for the intrusion. As Deku says, no problem. Where's that, a gallon of water? Here you go. He's like, thank you. As Deku just, like, is drinking this giant glass, he's like, delicious. So, anything interesting? As they talk on through the night, as Deku and Momo continue to talk about UA, upcoming test, and they talk about how Emmy, whatever her name is, Emmy, died from an unknown reason, that her company is currently being taken care of by some higher ups while her son is away. He's like, yeah, I know him. You do? Yeah, I ran into the kid when we were at that little get together, that little shindig, you could say. He looked familiar to me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. As Deku's lying about Baki and him being related, as not a lot of people do know he has a brother. With that being said, Deku and them move past this quickly. As when they get their food and such, Deku still gets that, like, large plates and all that. As in eventually, a giant man in a giant white suit comes by, as it says, Mr. Hanayama! As the waiters bow their heads, like, as he's like, as he just sits by the bar. So Momo and all of them are like, man, that guy's a giant. As Deku has, like, pretty much finished his food, he walks over. He's like, Deku, what are you doing? Going to say hi to an old friend. You know, they're like, you know who that is, right? Hanayama Karu, the boss of the Hanayama group. He's like, yeah, and you know what he does to strong fighters. He fights him, of course. As Deku walks over, just, like, claps a hand on Hanayama's shoulders, like, Hanayama, it's been too long. As Hanayama, like, sort of looks back and actually holds out a hand, as Deku and him, like, sort of shake hands firmly. It's like, so, how you and your boys been doing? He's like, good. He's like, oh, UA's been doing just fine, since you weren't asking. He's like, any interesting news happening on the streets lately? Well, maybe. He's like, a old group that were being run by an older gentleman of the Yakuza group suddenly changed hands a while ago. It's like, I don't know the name. What's the Yakuza member's name? Chizaki, or Overhaul. Apparently he's trying to do a drug operation. He's like, so I'm guessing you cut ties with him? He's like, yeah. As Deku and Hanayama have hung out a few more times, as Deku actually has gotten an understanding of how Hanayama runs his group. Is that Hanayama, from what I know, doesn't allow prostitution. He doesn't enforce like a money loaning, protection services, and what is it? What else is it? Drugs. The only thing if I remember, what he runs is like gambling rackets and such is like his main deal. And well, I guess sometimes violence, but hired muscle and such, you know. So as Deku and such goes on with that, he's like, so he cut ties with them. He's like, yeah, I don't deal with anyone who does with drugs. He's like, well, makes sense. After all, you're a man of honor, Hanayama. That's why you're one of the few men I actually respect around. One of the few men I actually can respect as an equal. It's like, but we aren't equals, are we? When it comes to fighting, no. But as a man, I respect you most. As he's like, well, I gotta go back to eating dinner with a friend, his family. He's like, have a nice night, Midoriya. He's like, have a nice night, Hanayama. As Deku, is about it, as the guy's about to hand the check to, not Hizashi, but, Mr. Yaoyorozu, Deku's like, hey, I got this. As I'll just say Deku's got a card by now, since it wouldn't make sense otherwise. He's like, oh, are you sure, sir? This was quite a large meal. He's like, that's okay, my treat. As he gets all his information signed in, he's like, oh, why, thank you, sir. He's like, you guys have a nice night. As he walks out and returns home. He's like, well, tonight was nice. I wonder what Bakugo's doing. As Bakugo's just eating dinner with her parents and such. Deku's like, hey, Bakugo's like, oh, Deku, where were you? He's like, I was going to eat out tonight. I was just really bored. I wanted to wind down. And then I ran into Momo and her family. So we sat down, had a dinner. And then during the dinner, I actually ran into Hanayama. I had a nice little chat with him, you know. He's like, so, anything new happening with you? He's like, nah, just dinner with my parents. Like, well, good to hear. As he cracks his jaw, he's like, oh, it's gonna be so annoying. She's like, what is? He's like, just. Oh no. Just feel like something's gonna be happening soon. But I can't place my finger on it, you know? Like, I can't say I know what you mean, but as when Deku's saying that, he feels a presence. He's like, I gotta go. As he's like, Deku, what are you? As there's just a beep. As he's like, okay, so murderous intent, no. Fighting spirit, odd. I don't quite understand this. As he's like, alright, who is it? As he turns around, he's like, who are you? As he's like, it's a pleasure to meet you. As Baki looks closely at the man, as he was expecting someone taller, and then he looked down, seeing a very short, bald man wearing some weird clothing, as the man says, hey, I believe it's Mitsuru or Mitsuru. So it's a weird name. All I know is all I know how to say is I believe it's Takugawa. As some of you may know this man, I should be putting up a picture right now. He is the hoster of the underground fighting tournament that in the second thing of Baki is where Baki actually meets Jack Hanma meets Jack Hanma, and yujiro and Baki continue to talk and blah 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 blah. But Mitsuru, or whatever his name is, I'm just going to call him Takagawa, introduces himself and says that he actually has been looking for Deku for quite a long time. As Deku says, why? He says, well, you see here, I thought I heard, like, your description from a sports festival sounded familiar. A giant man, very strong quirk, and has gone around beating every single underground fighter in the local area for the past couple of years. Who do you think people would hear about you, kid? Wow. Well, anyways, I saw you on the TV, so I wanted to talk to you. He's like, all right, about what? Well, you see here, in a few months, I believe it should be a few months, yeah, I'll be hosting this thing. What it is that I'm going to be hosting an underground fighting tournament. You see, the best of underground fighting tournaments, no weight classes, nothing, come to fight in my underground arena. People, and he's like, is there any point to this? He's like, yeah, getting to test your mettle against super strong warriors. As Deku says, what are the rules? The use of some quirks are not allowed. He's like, well, for instance, you can't turn the arena into a thing of slag. It's primarily fist-to-fist combat. He's like, alright, so explain even more. So, as he goes into detail, saying that there's no weapons allowed. So, if your quirk revolves around weapons, you're out. Like, you're not allowed to bring any blades, guns, whatever. As Deku thinks, alright, he says, like I said, the only thing allowed is your fighting skills. Any technique, any martial arts, any way of fighting, be it dirty, clean, whatever, is allowed. He's like, alright, and you think this would interest me? Why? Because I know the look from you. You're looking for strong opponents to make yourself even stronger, right? Deku says, you got me there. Explain. He's like, well, there's quite a few contenders already wanting to get in there. So, how about this? You help me, I help you. He's like, how the heck would I help you and how would you help me? He's like, I can guarantee you a spot in my tournament, but the only thing you gotta do is prove that you're actually strong without your quirk. He's like, explain. He's like, well, as you see, as a car pulls up, he's like, flip this car over without using your quirk at all. He's like, Deku's like, lets off a little grin, that all. As he walks over, it goes, as he flips it. As instead of just building mass, he's also built strength. As, like I said, he can lift several, like, if I were to push it to a limit, he could lift possibly, at the very least, 5 tons. And now this isn't like a full-on, like, lift over your head, but, like, flipping it, that should be good enough. As he flips it with effort, he's like, oh, that all? He's like, well done, as he claps. Sorry, I'll be seeing you soon, Mr. Midoriya. It will be a pleasure to see you there. As Deku says, oh, question. You know I have 2 quirks, right? Am I allowed to use both? He's like, you can fight however you like. You want to use both? Go ahead. You don't want to use either? Go ahead. It's all up to you, Mr. Midoriya. He's like, you know, this is starting to sound interesting. He's like, I hope so. Deku's like, you already got contestants already in there or what? He's like, yep. It's like, who? Well, we got Orochi Dappo, Retsu Kaio, and a few others that may appear over time. He's like, I've never heard of these 2. He's like, oh, well, then let me give you an explanation. Retsu Kaio is one of the top-ranking Chinese martial artists in the world. It is said that he has mastered over 4,000 years of all of it. He's like, Alright. As Deku lets off a smile, and Orochi Doppo has devoted his life to karate, it says. It said that he once killed a tiger with one chop. He's like, these men do sound interesting. He's like, was Tiger anything special? It's like, it was a almost extinct tiger. He's like, oh, that just sounds like a prick. He's like, yeah, he kind of regrets it now. He's like, well, Mr. Takagawa, I'll be waiting. And if this thing turns out to be worth my time, I'll check it out. He's like, thank you. That's all I can say. I'll see you there. And if you're interested in getting some practice fights in, I know a lot of these guys who'd be willing to take you on. He's like, that sounds nice. As with Deku walking away, he's like, funny little man. But whatever he's talking about does sound interesting. And he says it's in a few months. Or not a few, but a little bit ago, in a little bit of time. It should be fun, I think. So, as Deku returns home for that day, as he goes home, go to bed, that's it. As he calls back Hatsuki, he's like, hey, sorry about that. I got held up with talking with somebody. She's like, oh, who was it? He's like, nobody important. Just some guy offered me something. She's like, what was it? He's like, oh, what the heck. It's apparently an underground fighting arena that gets hosted every 100 years or so. I believe that's how long it is. And, he said he already has a position reserved for me due to what I did in the sports festival. She's like, if that's the case, why didn't he come to me too? He's like, well, you're not allowed to use weapons, and explosives count as those. She's like, oh, well, I see. He's like, hey, I bet you could take a lot of guys without your quick eye. If you had martial arts at least. She's like, oh, you barely know any. He's like, I know basics of many forms. I'm just not mastering them. So, for instance, I'm basic in judo, karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai, and a few others. I don't really devote myself to anything, Katsuki, because I don't believe I need to. If I can't, that's on me. And that just proves that I'm not strong enough yet to where I don't have to rely on anything. She's like, that's gonna get you hurt one day, Deku. He's like, probably. Well, see you in the morning, my little firecracker. Click. There's like a click as she's like, oh, well, good night. As they both lay down their heads, as then they get told about the whole, UA final exams. Well, wait, yeah, final exams. As Deku and them Deku and Bakugo are thinking it's probably just gonna be robots. Deku's like, yeah, this is kind of boring. As with that being said, they get told about, oh, it's gonna be UA teachers this year. As then they're like, wait, who are we gonna fight? I'm pretty sure we're stronger than anyone here. As All Might lands is like, good evening, Midoriya and Bakugo. Unfortunately, I won't be your fighting. It will be as there's this like, hey, as Deku and Bakugo turn around, it's like, what the? As he's like, how's it going? As it's a very giant black man with a weird mustache, like a very thin mustache called Biscuit Oliva, the Unchained. As it's like, this is Mr. Unchained, the #1 hero in the US. He's like, oh, you're too kind, All Might. He's like, oh, it's no problem, Mr. Olivia. As they like have a firm handshake. As All Might did know Biscuit Olivia when he was climbing the ranks of the hero world. Like, I believe Biscuit Olivia is like in his 40s, maybe in his early 30s, late 30s to early 40s, I believe. Same thing along with Yujiro, and All Might's around that age. All Might's around 54 years old, so a little bit older than the two of them. But I digress with Deku, like, not knowing who this is. He's like, I'll be your fighting, and there's a catch to the two of you. As it's like, what? As they slap them with the weighted collars and stuff. As Biscuit Olivia says, this will be fun. He's like, oh, and as he's like walking away to go into his starting position, as everyone's looking at this hero, as Biscuit Olivia's going by, he's like, oh, I almost forgot. Hey, Deku. He's like, huh? Your father says hello. He's like, oh. Wait, is he watching? As Deku starts looking around, he's like, as everyone's like, his dad, he's like, your dad isn't here today, unfortunately. Though, I can tell you this, oh, he's livid. Oh, he wishes he could have fought you during the sports festival. Really push you to your limits, but he thinks your girlfriend there is doing a good job helping you with that. As he walks away, he's like, I'll be looking forward to this as well. As everyone's just waiting, as Deku's just sitting there we gotta have these on. They strapped quite a bit to me and to Bakugo. And they also forbid me from using part of my quirk. As Biscuit Olivia is 110% of All Might. Just a little bit stronger than him. In prime form, like I said, because Olivia doesn't have a part of his stomach missing, so, you know. That being said, if All Might went toe-to-toe with Biscuit Olivia, it's more or less an even fight, because, you know, everything. And I believe the One For All is it's pretty much Go Beyond plus Ultra, because I don't believe One For All, when it was with All Might, I don't he even says, if you can take me on firing at 100% of my power, I have to go beyond that and force you to surrender. I believe that is literal, is that All Might can force One For All to overcharge, you could say. I believe that's I think that's the entire point of it, going beyond plus Ultra. But I digress with the whole thing. And what happens is that Deku and Bakugo have this stuff strapped to them, as everyone else is like, Deku, your father knows the #1 hero of the U.S.? He's like, I guess so. He's like, who is your father anyway? He's like, well, he's like, as he's still shy about telling people who his dad is, as Recovery Girl's like, oh, Midoriya, doesn't even matter at this point. They already know. They probably are I'm also kind of curious myself, since it wasn't really stated on your records. As Deku's like, his name is Yujiro Hanma. As Recovery Girl is like, wait, what? As she turns around, even who's that? As Recovery Girl's like, a very, very dangerous man. And it's like, wait. As one of them are like, how dangerous are we talking about? Saying that, let's just say, All Might would be not okay after that fight. As she looks away as she says, with somewhat of disdain in her, and everyone can tell with that. As we're like, so, wait, your dad is stronger than All Might? As Deku's like, yeah. Wait, and you've been talking about beating your dad this entire time? Oh my god, it all makes sense now. As everyone has clarity now that Deku is the son of someone stronger than All Might. As holy shit, it is true. Oh my god. As everyone's looking around, this is insane. Oh, as everyone's actually so many things are clicked together with everyone's oh my god, that's why you're as tall as All Might. That's why All Might actually, oh my, as everyone's their brains just in their head. As then Deku's oh, listen, I wonder what Biscuit's gonna do to us. As I believe I said, Deku's been forbid from using his mom's quirk. His dad's quirk go all out, but his mom's, well, that's a bit different. As Deku's at 99% of One For All of All Might, or Prime All Might, with just his dad, with just the Hanma quirk. So, As Bakugo says, Deku, maybe I should leave with this. He's like, you're probably right. As they walk into the thing, Deku's walking forward as he says, please God, please God, please God, please God, please God, please. As Biscuit Olivia throws down a punch as everyone's like, jeez. All Might really isn't that much of a monster, is he? As Recovery Girl says, now hush your mouth. All Might's number one hero in the was number one hero in the U.S. and the number one hero here for decades. I'll remind you. As they're like, we understand, Miss Recovery Girl. It's like, good, but I'll let you know this guy and All Might actually did have a fight once. They're like, wait, really? Yep, they destroyed an entire mountainside. It's like, Jesus Christ, what's about to happen to these people? And that was before the fight was even settled. But by the end of it, both of them seemed pretty tired. As Biscuit and Olivia is just, super strength and all that. As his skin is almost impenetrable. Or if it can be penetrated and such by bullets. But like explosions and such, not so much. Let me explain it a bit better. It's like Luke Cage, you could say. Except when a bullet hits him, it doesn't penetrate, it just enters a little bit and then gets stuck. Because of his muscles, he's too big to be stopped by any normal bullet. So, as Deku and Bakugo are like prepped for this, he's like, as he cracked his neck, he's like, alright, I'll try to be a frontline fighter. See what I can do. And we'll see what goes from there. As he's like taking a stance, he's like, alright. As he sort of hypes himself up, he's like, alright. As he takes a stance similar to like a bit of karate. As Olivia doesn't do that, as he does the whole, he doesn't really do the punch thing. He just comes over and is just walking over as everyone's like, he doesn't have a hero suit? As Recovery Girl says, Mr. Olivia here doesn't like them. He says that they're not really part of his style. As he typically wears long pants with nice shoes and a Hawaiian-like shirt, you could say. With colorful shirts, you could say. As he's like, so, Ogre, son of Ogre, let us see how you do. As he lets off like a nice little smirk, Deku's like, oh, don't be so nervous, kid. I won't hurt you too much. Your dad wouldn't like that now, would he? As Bakugo says, alright, enough about this. AP shot, pew 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 pew. As her explosions are not dulled, but she is slowed. As Olivia actually is able to gets hit by one, as then he moves in and punches, he pretty much punches Bakugo, sending her into the wall. As she's like, shit. As Deku's like, as he looks at Olivia, he's like, sorry I had to hurt your girlfriend, but still, I was told to go. As he just feels, there's something hitting my face. Oh. As then he's sent into a wall himself. As Deku says, now I'm pissed. As that's where I'm going to end this one off at. I'm sorry for cutting it short, but I want to make another epic fight for you. And plus, yeah. Also, I'm almost at 2,000 subscribers, people. So, clap, 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 clap. Yeah, I checked earlier, I was at 1,900. I personally don't think I deserve this much, to tell you the truth, since I just make videos and don't really put too much thought into them. Well, not too much thought, or not a lot of thought. It's just that I don't really write scripts. And I can say this, there are quite a few people I think make a lot better videos than me, for the simple fact that their scripts are awesome. So, yeah, that's what I think of this. But anyways, I hope you all have enjoyed this. Also, For the special, if I do another one, I will be posting another one in community tab when I do reach 2,000. Which I would be deciding between doing a Deku and Bell What If, or doing a special where it comes to like a very, very detailed Deku or Bell What If. And or. That would be what I would do if you guys would like me to do that, and please tell me in the comments, would you prefer for a special that'd be a Deku and Bell, or a very highly detailed Deku What If with a lot of effort and editing put into it, which it may take a bit more time to make it, but it will most definitely be worth the quality. It would increase by a ton, I would bet. Same thing goes with the Bell What If. I got 2 ideas for the Bell and Deku What If. But thank you all for watching. I hope you all have enjoyed this. Hope you all continue to enjoy this. And I hope you all have a nice day, nice night, nice life.